You strong.
Hey guys, so we just talked about the benefits of two people going in the same direction, and yet the benefits don't outweigh the problems and the risk. So now we wanted to talk about the toxic nature of one spouse chasing bodybuilding and the other doesn't. And the reason this is so important is there are so many men out there that are chasing trophies and all of this stuff, and they have wives that are not understanding of what's going on because of the selfish nature of the gym. Wives that quite honestly are sitting at home at night while their husband is at the gym and not being at home with her and the kids, or a wife that is doing the same thing and the husband doesn't understand. And so this is a pretty tough subject because this is where Sandra found herself in some years ago. And it's okay to talk about. Sandra was very overweight at one time.
Yes.
And I'll let her tell you about that in just a second. But she was very overweight. She decided, Mama ain't going out like this. And so she really got herself into shape, joined a group of people that were getting in shape and all of that stuff. And it was even won a national challenge, I believe. Tell us about that as well. Won a national challenge. And listen, and yet her husband was not into fitness. Now, there's nothing wrong with fitness. Don't get me wrong. Nothing wrong with Mama not wanting to go out that way. But when we go to the extreme and we're talking about bodybuilding and figure and bikini and all of those obsessions, and then when it even goes to the dark side with steroids and all that stuff, your spouse doesn't understand all that stuff. And so it creates real problems. So why don't you tell us about, where you found yourself as an overweight young lady and why and kind of how everything went?
Yeah, so I've always been chubby growing up and yo-yo dieting and whatnot. So after I had my fourth daughter at...
She's got 4 kids,
yeah.
Guys, 4.
Had my fourth daughter at 30. I was about 190 and again, I had to find some diet, something that's going to work, and I want to get this weight off, and I want to get it off fast, as every female wants to get it off. So I tried something different, found a group, Body for Life, found a group online, a forum back in the day, and joined it, and there was a lot of motivation there, a lot of accountability, something that I didn't have before, and so I lost a lot of weight with that. I got down to like 120, which was a little thin, and didn't have a lot of muscle, just mainly in my legs. So I wanted the next challenge. I said, okay, I'm good. Now I've got down to weight. I don't want to stay like this. I want some muscle mass. So some of the girls in the group were competing. I said, well, what is this? And they told me about figure, and then I started watching, some of the videos. I was like, okay, I really like that look. Like, I want to do that. Like, I can do that. I can do that. I could envision myself doing that. Like, I'm going for it. I don't even care. Like, I don't even care what anybody thinks. I'm going to do it. So I got into it, found a coach, did my first show, 2008, in Georgia. It was very thin. Got down to 113.
Ooh.
Very dieted. I didn't know any better. It was my first show, my first coach. I was just following her lead. I was very, very little. Okay. Placed third. There was only like 4 or 5 girls in the, it was a national show. I qualified for nationals. Did not even think I was ready for that. So I was like, okay. Got my feedback from the judges. They said, you need more muscle mass. You're way too small. You look great. Your legs are great, but you need to work on that. So that's what I did. Did another show. Got a little more weight. Fast forward. I was married at the time with my now ex-husband, and it was a struggle. Like, he didn't work out, he didn't do any of the stuff, and so it was hard for him. Always questioning, why does it take so long to be at the gym? I had a lot of friends at the gym, and look, I'm not gonna lie, there was male friends as well, because they had something in common with me that my husband didn't, and I didn't see it as, you get your your view gets a little clouded. Let's just say that. So
you're saying your view gets a little clouded because is it because like you start to feel like he's against you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's not for me, and even though he tells his friends like, "Oh, she's my trophy wife," blah blah blah, he brags about what I do, but he's really upset that I'm doing it, and he's not in it. And he's tried to work out with me, and that didn't work out. He just feels like I'm not at your level anymore. Like, so the chubby girl that he met and got with is now this person who works out and is sped up, basically way ahead of him, and he can't keep up basically.
Yeah.
So it caused a lot of turmoil in our marriage, along with other things that I don't want to talk about. But
let's just, and we don't want to explore those things because those things were really painful.
Yeah.
But I think it's okay to say that you guys were not going in the same direction.
Yeah, we were going apart.
And you guys were really far apart, and yet it was creating a lot of issues. And out of spite, he was having affairs and going online and doing a lot of things that he shouldn't have been doing. And there was a lot of issues. Now, that can go both ways because whether you believe it or not, the bodybuilding industry is nothing more really than soft porn.
Yeah.
And if you look, a lot of bodybuilders, or excuse me, I should say women that are into the fitness and bikini and all of those things, you'll see, if you even look that up, you will see a lot of those women have come through the porn industry.
I know from facts. I've seen a lot of women that I even knew, and I later found out they were dabbling in that, and I was like, well, I don't know.
And you were approached to do something as well, which of course you said no.
I said, no, I don't want nothing to do with that. That's one thing. I was like, I'm not going to be sellout. I want to do this. I want to work hard, and if they, I don't want to go about doing shady stuff to get, in with the judges. That's just, but I heard so many stories and I saw things. So a lot of women, they sell out. I'm going to say it, they sell out to it. They do things to get to the top, and it's not right. It's not good.
Well, and as well as I believe you were even telling me about a website that approached you about doing videos, and things of that nature. So that you have to understand, this goes both ways. Husbands and wives. One is in it, one is not. One understands it or one doesn't understand it. And so you have this toxic nature that builds up, whether you're both going the same way, because we had toxicity in our relationship, and whether you're not going in that direction, you have one that's not going and one is, there's also a toxic buildup, and there is just this huge piece of dynamite just waiting to go off in both cases, because it's the selfish nature of this sport itself. Again, there's nothing wrong with going to the gym and working out and being healthy, but the obsession, and then once you get into the sport, you start to find out real quickly there's a lot of things that are going on there under the surface that the average public doesn't see and doesn't know. Good example. We were out one New Year's Eve, and you remember, and we won't say their names, but a very popular couple in the bodybuilding world. We were all together on New Year's Eve, and we were approached about going back to a hotel, basically for an orgy and a wife swap, and and we were like, man,
I was offended.
Yeah, we were both offended. I mean, I was like, dude, you're not getting your grubby hands on my wife, and no offense, I'm not interested in your wife. I'm not. We're not going there, man. We don't do that. And so there were many occasions where we had bodybuilding couples and things of that nature that we were asked to do and go to places.
Yeah, they were doing very strange things. Let's just say, look, I'm not no prude.
No, we're not prudes by any means.
Not at all. But if I'm with somebody, I'm with somebody. That one person, and we have a lot of fun and all that good stuff. But it's just the things people do. I'm just like, wow.
So, and then of course, you know, at fitness expos and things of that nature, you know, there are parties that happen. There are illicit drugs that are not steroids, but illicit drugs.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of things that we were invited to that we would just not do, because that's not who we were as people.
Yeah.
But, and so you were dealing with, when I met you, you were on the verge of divorce. You were about to divorce. And so here you met a guy that I was actually in a car accident. So when I met Sandra, I had gone from 300, a little over 300, about 305 pounds, down to, I was all the way down to 198 pounds, because I was in a single car accident that created paralysis on my left side. And so I had a lot of paralysis on my left side for 18 months. And so when I met her, I was not that gigantic man that I became. And the funny thing is I kept trying to convince her, no, I'm a bodybuilder. I was 198 pounds and I was real skinny at the time. And I kept trying to tell her I was a bodybuilder. And actually, I'm glad I wasn't that gigantic man, because when we met, she probably would have had nothing to do with me, quite honestly.
Yeah,
so,
I didn't really care into the big bodybuilders.
Yeah.
You know, if I would have met him that big, I would have been like, I'm not talking to you.
Yeah.
Because I'm sorry, but a lot of bodybuilders are very douchey. I'm just putting it out there, okay? They act very all about themselves.
And they are.
I'm not looking for that.
Yeah. And especially, let's be honest, especially men. And we'll talk about something, and we're not going to get deep into it. But when you're loaded out on 3,000 mgs a week of testosterone, remember, is what drives your sex drive. And unfortunately, that creates in probably most, if not all, guys, a situation where they don't control their sex drive. They don't control their eyes. They don't control any of that stuff. And not to get into it, because I don't want to be hurtful, but we went through that same situation with me. And it wasn't until 2019, when I got my life right with the Lord, that all of that changed. And I'm very glad it did, because honestly, I almost lost my wife. And if it was not for her love for me, by every right, she should have or could have walked away. And just as God gives me grace, she gave me grace. And it was very healing. And I remember telling her back then, I said, you will never have this problem with me again. And she has not. And by the grace of God, she hasn't. And I'm not that guy that I was in 2019 or 2018 and back. And so I'm very, very blessed to have what I do. And so just understand that bodybuilding in and of itself is toxic. It's toxic to relationships. It destroys marriages. It destroys families. Now, we are not going to sit here and say that every family that has bodybuilding, husband and wife, has a problem, okay? But I can promise you, marriage in and of itself is a challenge. You know, I mean, we're not bodybuilding anymore, but we still have our challenges. We still have our disagreements and things like that. But at least we're not dealing with the extreme drug usage, the selfish nature of that sport, and both of us going literally different directions, you know, anymore. So
it's just a little different now, because we don't have that.
Yeah.
That kind of was a little bit of a glue, toxic glue. And now we're dealing with real life issions in the marriage.
Yeah.
And
now we're having to figure that out.
And now it's like, oh, okay, what do we do now?
Yeah.
And we're having to go through struggles, and then that makes us grow more. But it's rough, because now it's like, okay, this is real life stuff that I haven't really dealt with. It was kind of like covered up by the bodybuilding, and so. Because
literally you walk in a haze, don't you?
Yeah.
You really do. And it's not a haze that's a good haze. You're just so self-focused. And, you know, I look back at all of that time now, and I wonder how in the world you get so caught up and so in bondage to that stuff. And to be real with you, it's a bondage. And I would tell you this, the difference between our problems now that we deal with and the difference between then is now we have the Lord Jesus on our side. And if it wasn't for him, we would not still be together. And that's just the truth. And so there is a reality to all of this. And that is this, that if you are somebody that's in this sport and you are considering taking all of these drugs, and just understand the heavy toll that it's going to take on your marriage, your relationship, your children. What about even like your extended family? They're not going to understand what you're doing.
Yep.
You know, my mother and father for years prayed for me because they saw this thing that I was into and how badly it was destroying my life. And let's be real. I just got out of the hospital not too long ago for an intestinal blockage. I have scar tissue in my intestines. And the doctors kept saying, did you have surgery there? And I said, no surgery. And so the only conclusion they can come to is it's the life of pumping extreme amounts of food through my system, extreme amounts of weight, in other words, extremes. And bodybuilding
is extreme.
Is an extreme.
Yep.
Don't get caught up in the devil's lie of the glitz and the glamour, because I promise you that stage time literally lasts just a few minutes. And now you're left with an entire year of trying to figure out what you're doing, why you're doing, how you're doing, and your entire life is wasted on you, right?
Well, it's that fame and that pride, and that's what Satan wants you to do, is have that pride, and it's all about me. And then it's just a season, like, you're going to get older. What about that? What about your future? Like, all of a sudden,
you're living for the now.
Yeah. So then what about that? Like, it's like you've wasted time with doing all that. So you have to come to a realization, like, well, I need to plan for my future.
Yeah.
I need to think about my kids. I need to think about my family. What am I going to do with myself after this is over with?
Yeah.
You know, and then getting yourself back with your hormones, checked, basically. So.
Yeah, and that's a great point. Guys, if you're on all of these drugs, get to the doctor. Get to the doctor. Because here's the thing. Whether we want to admit it or not, or people want to admit it or not, 99% of bodybuilders don't regularly go to the doctor. We are terrible at self-diagnosing ourselves, aren't we? We self-diagnose, try to figure it out. And honestly, I was even doing the same thing. I'd gotten sick on a Tuesday night, went all the way to Sunday before I finally went to the emergency room in so much pain I couldn't take it anymore. And when I got there, the doctor was like, your pain tolerance must be insane, because the average person would have came in the first day or the second day of all this pain. And that's part of my problem is, I don't know when I'm hurt. I ripped my lat off of my spine and didn't know it for months, right? I mean, so your pain tolerance, and that's the way it is. You don't live in reality. You think you know your body, but you really don't. You don't know what's going on the inside. And it's the same thing. Bodybuilding gets you to where you don't know what's going on the inside of your spouse. And honestly, we're playing so much catch up on this subject. And the reason why we're sharing it with you is we don't want you to struggle in the same way. And this is the reason why I wanted my wife on here today, was so that you can see the real backside, the real dark side, the real stuff of bodybuilding, and how it leads to divorces. It leads to almost divorces from us, and it leads to problems in your family, your children. And then when it's all over, you are left wondering, where's my health at?
Yeah.
How do I get out of this now? Am I going to die sooner than later had I not taken all this stuff? So again, I want to thank my wife for being here today. Hopefully many more, because she's a wealth of knowledge and insight. And so we want to thank you guys for joining us today on the hard truth about bodybuilding and steroids. There will be other series called The Hard Truth. Coming up, we want to do a series called The Hard Truth About God, The Hard Truth About Bible prophecy, The Hard Truth About Satan. And so this is a whole series that we'll be doing that hopefully you guys will listen to and be involved in. If you would do us a favor, would you please like and subscribe to this channel? But do us one more favor. Would you please comment below and tell us what you think about what we've said? If you have any other points that you'd like to point out about this subject, would you please do that as well? Remember, when you like, share, and comment, it pushes the algorithm out so that this video gets out to more people. And we think in the bodybuilding community, this subject is vital. So again, thanks a lot for being here, and we'll see you next week on The Hard Truth. Have a great day.